Hey everybody, and welcome back to Critical Crafting. This is Dylan, your content and crafting creator here. So as many of you know, I started a Patreon recently, Critical Crafting. We're making all kinds of 5e content. And there are a bunch of conventions coming up, Origins and Gen Con, and I talked with some amazing people last year just about being a content creator, making 5e content, making books, and different things that people would love to use in their games. And I had put these, interviews together. I went and interviewed all these people, amazing people, and I got so busy with the Patreon that I never got a chance to put the video together until it was so late. I was like, nobody's gonna even think about this. The conventions are so far off now. So I waited until now, where the conventions are coming back up. A lot of these people, if not all of them, you can see at Origins or Gen Con. And so I thought this was the perfect time to show some of the awesome people in the community. They have some amazing advice for anybody who is either running a game, looking for a product, or wants to become a content creator that's making books or starting their own business in the role-playing games industry. This video has a little bit of a different format in that it's fairly long. So if there's a particular person that you want to jump to see kind of what they're talking about, there are timestamps in the description. I'm also including links to all of their content. There was so much going on that I just couldn't fit it all into the video. So in this interview, you're going to see Kobold Press, Drifters Atlas, Hit Point Press, and Limitless Adventures, all amazing people. Not going to take any more of the time with the intro, so let's just jump into it here. So my first guest for these interviews is Thomas and Zach from Drifters Atlas. And Drifters Atlas really attracted me to their booth just with the art that they had. And on top of that, when I started talking with the two of them, I found that they had an amazing product that was doing some things I had not seen anybody else do. So they had some awesome advice, and I wanted to share that with you.
All right, so we're the Drifters Atlas. My name is Zach. This is my friend Thomas. And we co-created this company to crank out the best 5th edition supplements you can find.
I am a little bit everything, sort of jack of all trades. I do all of our distribution. I run a retail game store in my daytime job, so we do a lot of talk to retailers. I also do some of the creation, but mostly all of the stuff behind the scenes.
I do all of the writing for the most part, and coordination with the writers, and art design and things like that. Basically, I'm the person who puts all the pieces together and then hands them off to Thomas a lot of the time.
How did this company start?
So I started doing Kickstarters back 2 or 3 years ago, and with Oceanic Depths there, and did a couple more projects kind of on my own or with some other friends. And once the pandemic hit, Thomas and I found ourselves with a lot of free time. We weren't doing the convention thing much at all. And what do you do with free time except make more books, right?
And Zach set up a Patreon for his writing at the time, and I backed the Patreon. He's like, so what do you guys want to see? I'm like, well, I've always wanted to see a community-driven story told. So what we started with Motherload was we started a Twitch, and we started having people come in and help us write, come up with ideas for our world. And when we did that, people really started to take off the idea that, or like the idea that they could come in and influence books by just watching a Twitch stream.
Okay, so you kind of source the community for feedback or even like ideas and stuff, or how does that work?
When you come to one of our world building streams, what you're doing is just hanging out and being a part of the creative process. You don't have to, we're not, if nobody's there or if there's just a few people there, we'll just be talking, the two of us, and putting things together. And when there's a whole crowd there, they'll be throwing out ideas of things that they'd like to see in the world. The end result is that you end up seeing a lot of people picking up the book and feeling like they had a hand in this world and creation, and they've already adopted it before they've even held it in their hands. Community content that has something to say and has a story to tell and wants you to be a part of it.
So we want you to tell your story, but we want to give you all the tools to get you there, right? So things like message board that we're giving away this weekend is a set of hooks. so you can continue telling the story you want to tell without the players feeling like they're forced into something.
How did you guys get involved like in the hobby in general?
I started back with 3.5 and Pathfinder. I didn't know anything about RPGs whatsoever, and I went to college, and some of my professors invited me to come play with them. And so my first D&D experience was, here's some websites, go build a character and come play with your professors on a Friday night. And it was awesome. I was hooked. Leveling, okay, we'll figure this out as we go along. There's a feat tree that, you're 3.5,
The prereqs.
you're buried in all of that sort of stuff, which was awesome. Like that ended up being the thing that I gravitated towards anyways.
I am a little bit older, so I started in 2.0.
Okay.
My dad came back from Desert Storm with books from when he played overseas.
Wow.
And I looked at them like, these are really cool. There's monsters and half-naked women and all these cool things.
A lot like other people in the industry, we got our start at Kickstarter. We talked about that. And we've done 12 successful Kickstarters at that point. Our product line is mainly 5e. And as Thomas has said, we've done a lot of AL content, Adventures League, organized play. So you'll see a lot of that sort of feel in our adventures. Our purpose is we want to tell stories that are succinct, that you can actually manage to get through. We're not going to have a campaign that takes you 2 or 3 years to finish. We're going to have campaigns that you can buy this book and in 3 months you'll have finished it and you'll feel successful and you'll feel awesome and you'll be like, that was a great story. We actually had a great story and it wasn't us just wandering around in the desert for 6 months.
And that's huge to me because as an adult with kids and 2 jobs and everything else, I make a session maybe once a month for my current games, right? So in 3 months, we can tell the whole story if we cut to the thing, or if, like my group, we want to explore every nook, we can tell it in 6 months.
Yep.
Where we would take a WotC book or Knights of the Shadow Realm or anything else. For me, it's really hard because it's going to take me 3 years.
That's the thing that makes us unique is we're trying to be time conscious in our adventures. Tell the story, help you tell that story, and move on to the next one.
I don't think we could have been as successful we are without 5th edition. 5th edition for us, and especially for me doing the convention stuff originally, it's really easy to get people involved in an hour in D&D, learn the game, have you rolling dice, advantage, disadvantage, everything else has streamlined so much that we can tell these stories the way they are.
On the other side, we also have a whole bunch of pet projects, like Scrap Rats is level 0 5e. If you want to play a commoner and you want to play a commoner in space with sci-fi and run around with 8 hit points and hope you don't die and mess with relics and artifacts and things that you shouldn't be messing with and encountering creatures that will kill you very, very quickly, it's a great fun.
We do the level 0, and level 0 is a really good way to get new people into a genre, right?
Yep.
So what we thought is level 0 is great because it can be ported to any other game. So the idea is that you play Scrap Rats and it's so rules light that if you really like sci-fi horror, you can take it to Alien. So basically your character just becomes extensive backstory. Just like everybody's gonna say, we have made things that we thought was necessary, right? So some of our products are literally just like games that Zach or I have played and we're like, oh, this feels so lackluster. Right? So like Oceanic Depths, which I pointed to a little bit ago, Oceanic Depths is just a supplement. It's not an adventure or anything. And it's all to keep you on a ship rather than like island hopping. So we found that every time we played Pirates or anything else, it was get a quest on a docks, move to another island, get attacked by maybe harpies or birds or something, move to another island, maybe do something in the water on the shore, but not. So basically Oceanic Depths is, we don't want you to get back on the ground. Like, we want you to be on the boat long periods of time.
In Oceanic Depths, you have like a system of villains and like their backstories and their layers and like potential minions and stuff. And then in Knights of the Shadow Realm, there's this idea of almost like a video game boss fight where he kind of like levels up sort of thing. So can you expound a little bit more on each of those topics?
We set up a really big, what they call a big bad or a big villain that you would like work towards. It's not just a day trip to go find this person. And then we expound on that.
There's 13 villains in Oceanic Depths, and each one has a unique backstory, description, lair, magic items, horde, everything that you need to outfit that villain comes in the book, but there's no story surrounding it, so you can kind of just place all of those aspects wherever you need to in your own campaign.
Or as a DM, it's really nice when you don't have something prepped. but you're by a port town and you're just like, boom, new villain.
Yeah. Knights has a really cool ending. I won't give it too much of a spoiler away, but at the end of it, we didn't want, a lot of times, especially at higher tier play, what you find in 5th edition is that the hit points kind of reach a plateau. And so your monsters become very easy to defeat if you're not careful. So what we wanted, and what David and I designed, is a monster that you have to defeat in 3 stages. And with each one of those stages, there's a complete transformation that changes how you must address them in the fight. And what that means is that you might easily blow through one depending on the makeup of your party, but because we have 3 stages of this creature, it comes to the point of you have to adjust mid-fight for new tactics, for new abilities and all that. And we found through playtesting that really makes that fight almost guaranteed memorable, as opposed to this creature has 500 hit points and everybody can do 150 points of damage at tier 4 every round pretty consistently. So just do the math real quick and it'll be over in 2 rounds.
What advice would you give to other people who are either like crafting content for their own games or even trying to get into a similar space as you guys where they're making content to kind of sell at conventions and whatnot?
This is a super easy question that I get asked all the time, honestly. There's a billion people out there that are making good money on products that either need to be told or not need to be told in RPG space right now. And I will say, like, if a table company can make $10 million, while that's awesome that they can do that, right? I'm glad our hobby's there. You can make adventures and sell them for $15. The money is there in the industry. So what I would say is find people who are also creating, talk to them and what they're doing. If you have a story that wants to be told, reach out to somebody. There's people, if you don't want to distribute it, there's people, BackerKit and things like that for Kickstarter will all do the distribution and everything else for you.
And the other side of it is, I think, the 2 things that I would take away is, first and foremost, don't be afraid to tell the thing that you want to tell. There's an audience for what you like. There's people out there like you. Tell that story. Don't say, well, the industry likes X, so that's what we're going to make. Your passion will bleed through in the products that you create. And
that comes back to like Oceanic Depths, what I said, that there wasn't another like pirate book out there. And we sell more Oceanic Depths in our store than any other non-Pazio or WotC book.
With anything, but especially in our industry, find some sort of artist. If you're not an artist, find some sort of an artist that you really get along with and that you feel conveys the style of your game. And don't be afraid to spend an earnest amount of money getting your game presentable. There's countless projects on Kickstarter every week that are probably really awesome, but they're trying to get by with, hopping on flip art and grabbing a couple things and calling it good. Your ideas are only as good as the person's neck, right above you in the scroll feed and right below you. And spending, a few $100s or a few $1,000s on a few art pieces is maybe the difference between a successful project and a non-successful one.
And the other thing is that this industry is a labor of love. It always will be. This isn't where you're going to go and get super rich super quick, right? So
probably not.
If you're super interested and you want to tell your story and everything else, I think everybody can do it.
I would like to contribute to this hobby and maybe make it a fraction better by some of my words, and that's the thing that gives me juice, saying like, aha, I have this idea. I had Siege. I can tell you how to do a Siege warfare that's not overly complicated.
But my thing is I really wanted something where I felt like I was really excited to go to work every day. I was doing project management and I was working 70 hours a week and I wasn't super happy, and I was making good money, but I wasn't super happy. And so now I run a game store. I run probably one of the bigger private game stores in the country. I get to do that during my day job, and then I get to come here and I work 70 hours and I don't think about it. And I make a little less money, but I'm much happier. My family's better off for it because I'm not grumpy and taking it home at the end of the day and everything else. And it's just been fantastic. I get to come in here and do things like this.
The industry has so many people that are making content, so many new people that are coming into it. Like, how do you see this as an oversaturated market, or are you guys looking at it and going like, we love working with other people? Like, what's your perception of how things are going?
So right now, I think the market will handle whoever's willing to come to the table and actually put in the work. It's a growing market. WotC puts out the numbers, Roll20 puts out the numbers, all the big players put out the numbers every year, and it's like we're doing gangbusters. So that means that there's room at the table for a lot of people. The thing is, you got to come ready to work and ready to put forth effort. If you're not willing to, put your best foot forward, you're going to find it to be a harsh industry because there's a lot of people putting their best foot forward right now.
The labor of love is truly a huge thing for the RPG industry because while it's a booming industry, there's not a ton of people at the top, right? So there's a lot of money that you can go around, but it's smaller spots at first. And so like Zach and I worked on this for over a year before we took really any profits. The idea of the labor to love is really the thing to remember. If you're willing to stick it out and you're willing to put in the hard work, I guarantee, but I would expect that there's more than enough space for everybody who wants to play.
My next guest is a big name in the industry. Kobold Press, Wolfgang, amazing guy, lots and lots of experience, just years of knowledge about the industry, how everything works, how to get into content creation, and I just thought he had some amazing points that I wanted to share.
My name is Wolfgang Bauer. I am the founder and Kobold-in-Chief at Kobold Press. I've been in the tabletop RPG industry for about 15 years with Kobold Press, and before that I spent some time at TSR and Wizards of the Coast. So Kobold Press publishes 5th edition D&D content as a third-party publisher. And as a first-party publisher, we're a design studio for Wizards of the Coast. Hoard of the Dragon Queen, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Rise of Tiamat. You can find a Kobold Press logo if you open up your Rise of Tiamat or your Tyranny of Dragons book. 5e D&D is our bread and butter. We make monster books, we make adventures, we also make guides to how to do game design generally. So Kobold Press got started pretty much based on a tip jar. The first bit was just, I wonder if people will throw some money, I'll pass the hat and I'll try to get enough money for cover and I'll do a PDF release. And that's how the company got started. Kickstarter didn't exist at the time, but the internet sure did, and I had existing fans who knew my work from Wizards of the Coast. I had a big head start that way. But I still didn't know what that guy was doing in terms of producing a printed book or how to, distribute it to bookstores. And until Kickstarter came along, some of those things were really hard. It was a very small company for a while. Two things helped spur it. One was I launched a magazine because I'd come out of Dragon Magazine and Dungeon Magazine. I knew that world. And when Dragon Magazine folded up shop and said, we're not doing a printed product anymore, I said, well, I still like printed magazines, so I guess it's up to somebody to make one. And that somebody was me. So for 4 years, I published Kobold Quarterly. The other big one was, in fact, Kickstarter. When that came around and I tried my first Kickstarter, didn't really know what to expect, but I learned how Kickstarter works and how to ship and fulfill a Kickstarter. I was doing it all out of my garage at the time. Well, it wasn't as bad as it sounds because there were only a few hundred backers. These days, Kobold Press gets thousands of backers, and fulfilling that out of my garage would be a pure nightmare. And now I think we're on Kickstarter 21 or 22, just wrapped up. We haven't been hyper cleverly planned, right? Some of the things we've had success with were happy accidents. I love monsters. I call myself a monsterholic. When I saw the open gaming license for 5th edition, I'm like, well, the first thing I'd like to do is do a big monster manual. And so that was Tome of Beasts. And it was as much because I love monsters as because I thought it was a clever business decision, right? But yeah, sometimes it's just been pure luck. But it's those happy accidents that lead to a success. Other times somebody says, I really love whatever, psionics, they're the best. I'm like, oh no, I've been down this road before with the magazines. Publish one psionics article, 10 people like you and 100 people are like, you have wasted 12 pages, wasted on this psionics. I never used them. How could you? You could have been giving me Dragonlance. You can never make everyone happy is one of those lessons, but It's also worth knowing that there are companies that say, we love psionics, we're going to make the best psionics stuff ever. So if that's your niche and you own it, everyone's going to say, well, that guy over there loves psionics. He's done 6 psionics products. They're the best ones out there. He's clearly obsessed with it, and we love that. Oh, that's a brutal question. I used to say it was writing it, because I do love game design and writing. But as I've been in the business a very long time, I find there are other portions of it that are just as compelling. Collaborative projects are currently one of my favorite parts of the creative process. Kobold Press started as an open forum, right? People chatting, brainstorming, shooting ideas around, and we've continued that level of submit. We still have an open submissions policy, for crying out loud. For a company our size, it's unusual to still take submissions from just about anyone. It is still a small field. It's grown a ton in the last 5 years. But it's still possible to know all the big players and most of the small ones. I think at the moment it's grown so fast that there's room for everybody. At some point, and I'm old enough to remember the third-party crash with D&D 3.5, right? At some point, there will be more creators and not enough customers. And yeah, it's really unfortunate because the people who usually survive in that environment are the biggest ones, who have a deep back catalog and close partnerships with whatever bookstore chains, or clever tie-ins with some influential streamer, or whatever it is that gives them their advantage. And the newcomers some of them will survive somehow, but it's going to get a lot harder. It's a cyclical market, and 5th edition is one of the highest peaks we've seen. So yeah, I dread the thought of, at some point, somebody's going to say, yeah, I'm done. Or the hobby shrinks a little, or it just levels off. And other people are still going to be chasing a dream and they'll never get there because there's just not enough players. And it's hard to keep going. At the moment, 5th edition is on a hot streak, but when it all kind of levels out or cools off to any degree, if you want to keep going, you got to keep going. The creative life is a very satisfying but often somewhat perilous life. I guess my advice there is sort of don't quit your day job just yet, right? Like, write that book, get that game product out there, but see how it does. For most people, it's a slowly rising tide. A few people will recognize you right away. You won't have a mass audience in 30 days unless you're an incredible genius of talent. But persistence, basically, is half the battle there. Part of the reason Kobold Press has been successful is we've been at it for 15 years, and every time we fall on our faces, we just kind of get up and say, all right, let's do it again, but better. I'll never tell people to just chase the market, because I've done that, and it's usually not satisfying either for you creatively or for the audience, because they're like, you're just pandering. And the problem with what's hot at the moment is other people who think in that same way are chasing it too. And if they're better funded or faster, or I don't know, there's a lot of ways to get beaten to the punch on it. Certainly have something that you're passionate about. Know how many other people are passionate about that. Creativity's tough to put in a bottle, right? If you're excited about it, you're going to do better work. I'll always give that advice, but try to have some perspective about how big your market is. And that's where Kickstarter comes in, right? Like, if you put out something on Kickstarter, and I've done this, that is not broadly appealing, but your goals are smaller, and your print run's smaller, and your art budget's smaller, it's like you put it out there in the world, and the people who love that narrower thing will will thank you for it, and you'll have the satisfaction saying, you know, that very hyper-specific Bumblebee RPG, it exists now. Hive Lords, go play it.
The next group that I interviewed was Limitless Adventures, and they're doing a really cool thing with creating content that's very easy to drop into your games, super digestible. They had some really cool cover work, and just talking with them, you could tell they were very inspired and passionate about the projects they were doing. They had some really, really cool things that I thought would be very useful to other DMs out there, so I wanted to share their content with you as well.
We're Limitless Adventures. My name is Mike Johnson. I'm partner with Andrew Hand. We have a regular camp out that we do each year where we get together and we game for about 3 days. On one of these camp outs, we were discussing some of the common problems that you run into as a DM. Creating NPCs, creating encounters. You know, the random encounters that you see are not very creative in the books. It actually gives you more work to do to see a random encounter. Oh, we're in the mountains and I need a random encounter. Oh, there's 2-4 kobolds. Well, why are they there? What are they doing? Why are they attacking me? Why do I care about them? You know, oh, now I have to look up the treasure and I have to build, you know, I have to build all this stuff. So we came up with this idea of sort of almost like a worksheet of, wouldn't it be nice to have a one-page thing? Here's the stats, here's the whatever, you know, the explanation of a scenario that's believable, that makes sense, that has some thematic elements to it. Be nice to have treasure already ready so I don't have to prepare that. Yeah, you have the stat block, everything's there, it's one sheet. We also provide a print-friendly edition in case you'd like to print out the encounters that you want to use for tonight's game and have a nice little stack of things that you're going to work through, but you don't necessarily want to use all the printer ink, or you just don't need it. Actually, once you take the art out, you end up with this nice column on the side for, you know, knit tracking and resources and what's going on. And then, you know, started looking at ideas of, you know, if I were to receive this, I'd like some help on where to go afterwards. So maybe that there was a ring that was found in the loot that instead of just writing down a monetary value for the ring, maybe that ring belonged to a noble. And in the next town that you're at, if you have the ring in your loot, then somebody will see it on your finger, the sort of thing, and they'll suddenly blame you for the death of this noble, or maybe stealing the ring, that sort of thing. So we kind of came up with this basic structure, and we started building them. We're DMs, like I said. You know, we focus on the products that we wished we had. You know, sort of that write the book you want to read. We wanted a product that we could string together. So it wasn't just, oh, these are random encounters, but with those extra further adventure prompts that we have in there, it would be something we could string together. Like, oh, I have to work all day. You know, we have families. You know, we work. We would come home and go, oh, I have to DM tonight, and I really haven't prepared. And it's like, oh, well, wait, we're going to be traveling through the forest. Let me go find that one, pull that one out, and oh, there's a little mountain. We'll do something with the mountain encounters, that sort of thing. And you could just build a string of adventures. Sometimes you finish early, you know, and it's something at Gen Con where you're paying to play in an event.
Right.
You know, you finish an hour early just because they happen to play well together, you know. They work well as a team, they power through it, and you know, now you're an hour early. Now what do you do? Well, one of the side quests, you're sort of below the city and there's a collapsed in tunnel. Well, that opened up into the sewers. I literally went to Encounters Volume 1, found sewer encounters, kind of looked through, found 3 that sounded pretty good, and that was our road out, was dealing with this. And actually I used the further adventure in there, that there was a kid that was lost, and then, you know, that sort of thing where they had no idea that I just padded out the entire thing using the Limitless Encounters. So the NPCs are, again, it's you know, okay, the party doesn't have a healer. Okay, they want to hire one. Oh, now I gotta roll it up. I need stats. Same thing, similar format. Give me a person. They have a personality and they have wants and desires and whatnot, and they have treasure just in case the thief decides that they're going to pickpocket this poor cleric or whatever. So you have these allies that you can have join the party. We also have those further adventure hooks that, how would I use this NPC in creating my own, some storylines and maybe ideals that they have. We have foes, so instead of just, it's a big orc, that's an orc that's a person who has, you know, goals, and they have their own sort of thing that they're trying to work through. The merchant section, and this is a common DM problem, You walk in, oh, I want to go to this, I want to go to the store, I want to go do some shopping. You walk in there, okay, what's in the shop? What's in the shop? It's so we not only give you an NPC that's running the shop, we give you the items that are there, that sort of thing, and we have those quest hooks. We have treasure in case you're going to rob the store, that sort of thing that's already built in there too. The arch enemies is what you were mentioning, where we have 4 villains, but they're at each tier of play. So yeah, you meet him once, and then now you foiled his plan, and you meet him again later, and now he's a lot more powerful, and that's all the way up to you get into that 4th tier where they're ridiculous level big bad. 5th edition Monster Manual's a great book, but there are holes. And specifically in this case, undead. You fight some skeletons, you fight some zombies. Then what happens? There's like this big blank spot, and then all of a sudden there's a big jump to, you get up into wights and specters and way up to like liches and things like that. And it's like, it'd be nice to have vampires are in there, but it'd be nice to have some where we can sort of continuously progress in difficulty in spooky locations or something. There's other monster types and things that have the same problem. So we took the original book, the 5e Monster Manual, and filled in a lot of those holes with different monsters. We included some lore, so if I roll a 15 Arcana check, what does that tell me about this? What if I got a 20? Would I know more, about this monster? Some of them have tactics. There are a few of them have, the players always want to carve something off and make something out of some creature that they fought, and we have harvest mechanics on some things that allow you to get consumable items or create some sort of magic item or something from the creature. Your players have never seen these monsters before. They're different, and that's always kind of nice too, because you can have a player who just they DM or something. They know the monsters. As soon as they go, oh, we got to be careful. This is something. This is something they haven't seen before. We wanted to create a system where, what if everybody can't show up for the game? That the schedule is the worst monster in D&D. It kills parties left and right. And so we wanted something where we could have a sort of DM-less solution where even if the regular DM couldn't play, the rest of us could still play the game together. That was, our DM-less product. Honestly, freebies that's what everybody wants on the internet. They want free stuff, They want to come in and download, and that sort of built a following of people. So we set some goals, and we said if we could do this if we could create this content on a regular schedule, and it was a pretty brutal schedule, came out to about 50 encounters a month, then okay, once we have that sort of library built up, and then we could start kind of marketing. And really our goal originally was just, a few bucks, you would get these PDFs, and that was it. And it just kept building and building and building from there, yeah. After about a year, once we had enough content, then we did our first Kickstarter with the Encounters, the Limitless Encounters Volume 1. A lot of our commissions and external stuff is working with artists. And one thing I definitely have to say about working with working with an artist or something like that is, they deserve to be paid for their work. We'll commission a piece, even if I'm trying something out, like I've got some ideas for some things that we're working on, and I'd like a piece of art that kind of helped me focus on that. Or I have a new artist I've never worked with before. You know what? I'm going to commission a small thing, $50, $100, something like that. Go ahead and commission it. They get paid for the work that they're doing, the effort they're putting in. Our big thing is that we've been treating DMing like writing. You're a writer. You're creating flash fiction for your players every week that they play. You're creating a short story for 4 other people that no one will ever know about. You're a writer, you really are, and you're creating this content for a very small audience, but you do it over and over and over again. So look at the things that you like, the styles and the layouts and things like that. Just see the way things are done by these other people, and that kind of give you ideas on how to produce it, because I can write this content, but it's so much beyond that. You've got, I can write this content, but it needs to get on a page somehow. It needs to be laid out. There needs to be art. Are you going to have art or not? Is it going to be black and white? Is it going to be color? And then even beyond that, okay, maybe that's a PDF. Now you get into printing, and there's offset printing. Okay, am I doing it that way? How is this digital printing done? There's so many steps that just keep going up until your Kickstarter. If you're gonna crowdfund that you have no idea, and it's like you got to grind that XP, and it helps if you can find someone to either pay to help you build those things, or otherwise you're going to be learning the hard way. And you know, we've tried to do one scary thing each time. You know, like, oh, we're going to try and do these crazy covers. Oh, now we're going to try doing this box set thing, and oh, now we're going to try these comics. But you know, that you have to interact with, now I need 6 different artists, and I need, you know, I mean, it's like there's always one more, you know, so it's just sort of build that XP and just, you know, just like D&D, you grind XP, you level up, you grind XP, you level up, you do it again, you do it again, you do it again.
My final interview was with Brian, a art director from Hit Press. And as a creative director for Lost Adventures, Arcane Minis, and Critical Crafting, I really wanted to find out if other people were doing things the same way that I were, and just get a chance to talk to someone who had a part in a book that has such amazing artistry in it. So I think he has some amazing points for anyone who is looking at becoming an artist in the industry, as well as just a very cool story about how he got started in all of this.
My name is Brian Walters. I am the event coordinator / art director for the Hit Press.
So how did you get into like the hobby and art direction? Like how did all that come about?
So it was a very convoluted process. I like to joke that I got where I am now with Hit Press because I argued about what was or wasn't a magic art book for Magic the Gathering. So there's a guy in the magic art community known as Vorthos Mike, who's really huge in the original art scene. And he and I were both at a convention, and he needed a ride to the airport. I was like, I can do that. And so the entire time, I was like, we started talking about the magic art books. I was like, they're not art books. He's like, what do you mean they're not art books? And I was like, at no point did they talk about the art, the artist, or anything. They're a plane guide, because the art is only important insofar as it talks about the plane. And I was like, that's nice, I still would have bought it. I just would have been a little bit less disappointed that it wasn't an art book. So we argued about that a little bit back and forth. And then he was looking for somebody to help out with setup and logistics for an art show that he wanted to put on for Magic the Gathering themed art. And I had been doing work with IlluxCon, which is a fantasy art convention in Reading. I've worked the Gen Con art show, I've worked with artists. I worked in a gallery for a period of time. So I had a decent background in the art display community. And so he was looking for somebody to help do the logistics for the setup and design for the show. And he reached out to me and was like, hey, is this something you want to do? I was like, sure. And the owner of Hit Press did the design work for that because he's really interested in original art as well. And so we met up, and he was looking for somebody to help him out in the States. And so I started helping out with the Kickstarters and getting everything set up. So he said, hey, I have this project. I'm really swamped. Do you think that you could help find the artists? And that turned into working like contracts and invoices, and then doing the actual art direction, because I guess competency breeds responsibility.
I'm interested to hear like what your artistic process is, how you go about like taking something and they say, you know, we have this idea or whatever, like how is it that you're taking something from start to finish? Are you using a lot of like mood boards, or is it mostly written prompts that you're giving to them, or?
Written prompts with reference photos. So I'm a very visual person, and I think most artists are as well. So usually I'll try to be like, hey, this is what, I don't want to put too much, like I don't want to say this is what I want it to look like, because then I'm like, you severely hamper their ability to express something that maybe you weren't even thinking of. But I'd be like, hey, this is kind of what I was thinking, or something along this lines. But make it your own, own it, that kind of thing. So usually it'll be a written description with visuals, and I'll usually put like a mood board or a focus.
So what advice would you give people, like if someone's like, I want to be an art director, I want to be an artist that works for Hit Press or another company, like what would you say to somebody who's looking to do that?
Well, at least, like in my case, a lot of it I attribute to dumb like luck and a lot of hard work. Like, be willing to put the work in. As far as artists go, honestly, the best way that I found a lot of the artists that I've worked with recently are like for the non like big ones, weird hashtags on Twitter. So like, I'm not gonna lie, I needed to look for like item artists, and I was having the hardest time finding anybody that had like items in their portfolios. And I was like, oh man, and so I scoured the internet, found some people, they're great, I love all of them, and then Sword Timber happened. the hashtag sword timber, and now everybody's posting item art.
Oh my
and I was like, where was this? I put the hashtag in, and I just go through every single post looking for work that might be something along the lines that we're looking for.
What would you say the most unique thing about like your products is?
I'd say one of the things that makes Hit Point Press really stand out is we're, for the most part, everybody in the company are all gamers, and a lot of us were artists. We make stuff that we as gamers also are proud of on an art standpoint. So it's not just about making a product, it's about making a product that we like and enjoy looking at. And it's really heartening, like, for me, that Cuban Majigs Kickstarter, like, the amount of people that came up and said, like, I'm backing this because of the art. I'm getting this much stuff because of the art. The art's amazing. Humblewood, flipping through it, people be like stop and stare because of the art. I mean, the night owl is adorable, Riffin, the mascot, but it's the art that grabs you. And we know that. That's why we're like, yeah, Riffin's our mascot. He's going to be on everything.
You can find some, if not all of these creators at Origins and Gen Con this year, 2022, and I will be running around at both of those conventions, so feel free to find me and talk. I love finding just different fans or people to collaborate with, so it's going to be an awesome time. I had such a great time at Origins and Gen Con, just talking with all of these different people. It was so inspiring to like learn where they started out and just to get some of their advice on becoming a content creator in the role-playing game community. I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of them again this year, as well as all of you at Origins and Gen Con. So thanks again. Until next time, this is Dylan with Critical Crafting.